Hey, what's going on, Noles Nation? It's your host, CJ Wilson, here to bring you another episode of Dope Talk. Going to jump right into it. Like I told you guys prior, this is a big time of year for FSU as Mike Norvell is in the midst of making a bunch of culture changes and hiring his staff for the 2025 season. We'll jump right into it and talk about the new two hires that FSU just made. But first, before we get into it, make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. Again, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel and join the Dope Talk family if you haven't already. All right, let's go ahead and jump right into it. And the first hire we're going to discuss is the offensive line coach, Herb Hand. That's right, Coach Mike Norvell has officially announced the hire of his offensive line coach, grabbing Herb Hand from UCF. He was the offensive line coach for Gus Malzahn, who you guys know is the current offensive coordinator for FSU and former head coach for the UCF Knights. Herb brings a wealth of experience within FSU as far as developing and coaching offensive linemen. If you guys remember in my previous video, UCF has had a top 20 offense the past 3 years, and more specifically and more importantly in regards to Herb, a top 10 rushing attack the past 3 years. Star running back RJ Harvey has benefited, from the stout offensive line that UCF has had over the years. And also Herb is experienced coaching at the University of Texas. He was the offensive line coach from Texas from 2018 to 2020. He was the offensive line coach and co-offensive coordinator at Texas. And during that time, he had multiple all Big 12 multiple all Big 12 linemen throughout the various teams, first, second, third, honorable mention. Herb Hand has had multiple offensive linemen that made all Big 10, all Big 12 teams, during his time at Texas. He is also a three-time finalist for Offensive Line Coach of the Year from the Football Scoop, going back from 2008, 2016, and 2017. So well-renowned coach. Also, he was the offensive line coach at Auburn with Gus Malzahn prior to taking the job at Auburn. Again, multiple guys were developed and drafted under him at Auburn, Texas, and, of course, UCF. And he recruited a lot of guys at Auburn as well. And prior to Auburn, he also coached the offensive line at Penn State and Vanderbilt. So Herb has a notion, not necessarily a notion. The word around Herb Hand is he's a really good recruiter. He's a really good developer, and he also knows how to identify body sizes, and body types in regards to offensive linemen, something that we really struggle with at FSU. So again, the biggest issue for FSU this past season was running the football and pass protection, right? Just the offensive line in general wasn't up to par for what it should be, as far as the FSU offensive line. It was one of the worst offensive lines in the country. You bring a guy like Herb in, he will be able to try to quick fix and make some proper changes to the offensive line. Like I said, he's a master technician and developer and teacher. So that's the main thing we need from the offensive line is just development, right? You got to develop your guys over the years, something that didn't really happen under the previous offensive line coach for whatever reasons. So you got to develop guys, and also you got to recruit certain body types or recruit guys that can come in and fit what you want to do as far as running the football. Like I stated, Gus is very familiar, even Mike Norvell is very familiar with him as they work together at Tulsa. All three worked together at Tulsa, if I'm not mistaken, Mike, Gus, and Herb Hand, and they had some of the best offenses during that time in Tulsa history. And just going back to, like I stated about Gus and their relationship, it goes back to Auburn, from Tulsa to Auburn to UCF, and now he's bringing his offensive line coach with him to FSU. So they're very familiar with each other. They know exactly what each other want to do and what each other expect and what they think as far as what it should look like on the offensive front. So that's very good to have that continuity and that continuation from pretty much three regimes, right? From four if you want to include Tulsa. So Tulsa, Auburn, UCF, and Florida State. So a lot of familiarity within the offensive line room. This is a guy that a lot of people kind of peg to be the offensive line coach as soon as Gus Malzahn was officially hired. And those people were correct as Herb Hand was officially announced the offensive line coach for FSU. Now, the next coach, we're going to switch to the defensive side of the ball. The next coach that was announced for FSU is Evan Cooper. He's going to be the safeties coach for FSU. He's from Miami, Florida, the Miami native, played football at American Heritage High School. In 2023, he was a defensive back and pass game coordinator for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And that year, in 2023 alone, Nebraska had 4 all Big Ten defensive backs. So really good. They also had a low as far as pass per attempt, Nebraska gave us 6.1 yards pass per attempt in 2023, which was the ninth lowest in the country, and it was also 15th in pass efficiency during that year. He also coached defensive backs in the NFL from 2020 to 2022. He was the defensive backs coach for the Carolina Panthers. If you guys remember, the head coach in Nebraska, Matt Rule, was the head coach for the Carolina Panthers. So from 20 to 22, he was the defensive back coach for the Panthers. In 2021, they had the number 4 ranked pass defense. In 2019, he was the DB coach and recruiting coordinator for the Baylor Bears. During that year for Baylor, the defensive backs the entire team had 17 interceptions, which was 5th most in the country. So what are you getting in Evan Cooper, right? You're getting a master developer, a master teacher, and the word is he's a very good recruiter. If you speak to people within the Nebraska circles, they stated during his time at Nebraska, he was a hell of a recruiter, brought a lot of talent in. Like I say, he's from Miami, Florida, has ties to the South. If you pair him with current defensive back Patrick Surtain, I think you have a home run defensive back field as far as from a coaching aspect. Pat coaching the corners and Evan coaching the safeties. These guys have done it before. These guys know what it looks like. These guys have brought the best out of certain guys. Pat at FSU, and of course Evan Cooper during his time with Nebraska, the Carolina Panthers, and the Baylor Bears. So I think this is a home run hire for FSU. If you look at the defensive staff itself as it is now, you have Pot Rose coaching the defensive line. Of course, you have Tony White, the defensive coordinator in Nebraska and prior defensive coordinator at Syracuse, a top 25 defense in 4 of the last years. Patrick Surtain, he was the best coach, in my opinion, on staff from the previous year. You keep him for this 2025 season, and you bring in Evan Cooper, another really good recruiter, young developer that could get something out of the secondary. I think you have a home run defensive staff and really good hires. And just from a recruiting standpoint, I think Evan Cooper is going to be night and day over what what former defensive coordinator Adam Fuller was on the recruiting trail. Evan Cooper is a lot more relatable, in my opinion, to the guys we're going to be recruiting. And that's going to pay dividends. And like I said, you got 2 heavy hitters in the South Florida area in Evan Cooper and Patrick Surtain. So I like where the staff is shaping up. Make sure you guys, like I said, like this video, subscribe to the channel, lock in with DoakTalk. We'll have more hitters coming in regards to the remainder of the staff. And of course, it's portal season, baby. The portal has officially opened on Monday, December 9th, 2024. Expect FSU to be very active within the portal, and also expect DoakTalk to be very active in getting you guys the news as far as transfers in and out from FSU. Lock in with DoakTalk. This is your host, CJ Wilson. Go Noles.